Dr. Ji-Woo Park rubbed her tired eyes staring at the quantum readings that refused to make sense. For the third time this week, her experiments were showing impossible results, particles appearing to exist in multiple states simultaneously for much longer than quantum theory allowed. "Hey, Taiho, look at this," she called to her research partner. "It's happening again." Taiho Kim leaned over her shoulder, his coffee mug dangling dangerously close to the keyboard. "That can't be right. The coherence shouldn't last more than a few microseconds." But it is, and it's only happening with the carbon neural interface. Their lab at Seoul National University wasn't particularly impressive, just standard equipment, with some custom modifications they'd cobbled together on a limited budget. But what they were seeing defied explanation. Ji-Woo adjusted the neural scanner strapped to her forearm. The device, designed to read the electrical patterns of human neurons, was originally part of a different experiment entirely. They'd connected it to their quantum system on a whim last month, and that's when the anomalies began. "I'm going to try something," Ji-Woo said, reaching for the frequency controller. "If we increase the resonance pattern to match my brainwaves." The lab lights flickered as she adjusted the settings. A strange sensation washed over her, like the feeling of falling in a dream. The air around her arm seemed to bend and distort. "Ji-Woo, I don't think that's safe," Taiho began. But Ji-Woo had already stepped forward, her arm extending into what appeared to be a ripple in the air. For a split second, the world around her shifted. Colors blurred together, and she felt as if she was in two places at once. Then everything snapped back to normal. "What just happened?" Taiho asked, face pale. Ji-Woo felt oddly calm. "I think I just stepped through something." She glanced down at her arm and gasped. There, scrawled across her skin, were equations and diagrams she didn't recognize, written in her own handwriting. "I didn't write this," she whispered, showing Taiho. "At least I don't remember writing it." Taiho photographed the equations before they could fade. "These look like coordinates. And this," he pointed to a complex diagram, "appears to be some kind of fold in space-time." Over the next 3 weeks, Ji-Woo and Taiho worked around the clock, deciphering the equations and reproducing the effect. They discovered they could create what they called probability folds, temporary tiers in reality that allowed matter to pass through, essentially creating shortcuts through space-time. "It's like the universe has glitches," Ji-Woo explained to the small group of colleagues they'd brought into their confidence, "and somehow our brains can interact with these glitches." What they didn't know was that their experiments had set off alarms billions of miles away. Aboard the monitoring vessel Eternal Vigilance, Scout Commander Tulnari studied the alert with growing concern. The ship's quantum anomaly detectors had picked up unauthorized manipulation of reality folds from Earth, of all places. "This can't be correct," Tulnari told his second-in-command. "Humans are centuries away from discovering probability folding. Their brains shouldn't even be capable of perceiving the dimensional lattice." But the evidence was undeniable. The Eternal Vigilance had been stationed at the edge of the Sol system for over a century, one of hundreds of monitoring outposts established by the Galactic Concordat to observe developing species. Their primary directive was to ensure no immature civilization discovered reality manipulation before they were ready for the responsibility. "The readings are clear, Commander," his second reported. "We've detected 17 distinct probability folds originating from a research facility in what they call South Korea. The pattern suggests intentional manipulation, not natural fluctuations." Tulnari's skin paled to a translucent blue, sign of extreme stress in his species. "Inform the High Council immediately. We need an investigative team dispatched to Earth." The Concordat had strict protocols for handling situations like this. Typically, they would simply erase the knowledge from the minds of the scientists involved and slightly alter local physics to prevent rediscovery. But something about these readings troubled Tulnari deeply. The humans weren't just stumbling. Upon probability folds, they were using them in ways the Concordat scientists had never considered. Back on Earth, unaware of the alien eyes now focused intently on their work, Ji-Woo and Taiho had made another breakthrough. "I can feel it now," Jiwoo said, eyes closed in concentration. It's like seeing a door that was always there, but I just never noticed before. Without any equipment, she raised her hand and seemed to push against empty air. A shimmer appeared, and her hand disappeared up to the wrist. Incredible, Taiho whispered, recording everything. You're doing it without the neural interface now. Jiwoo smiled. I think anyone could do this with practice. It's like learning to use a muscle you didn't know you had. Neither of them could have imagined that their discovery would soon send ripples of panic through an interstellar civilization, or that humans would be labeled the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not for their weapons or aggression, but for their unique ability to see and exploit the glitches in reality itself. Word spread quickly through government channels about the reality-bending discovery. Within days of Jiwoo and Taiho's breakthrough, men in dark suits appeared at their lab, politely but firmly escorting them to a secure military facility nestled in the mountains outside Seoul. We're not under arrest? Jiwoo asked as they were led through a series of security checkpoints. On the contrary, Dr. Park, said General Minho Kang, who greeted them personally. Your discovery may be the most significant scientific advancement in human history. We need your expertise. The facility buzzed with activity, scientists, military personnel, and government officials all working in what appeared to be a hastily assembled research center. Screens displayed data from Jiwoo's experiments, and technicians were already building replicas of her equipment. How long have you been watching us? Taiho asked, noticing that some of the displays showed data he recognized from weeks ago. The general smiled thinly. Let's just say your university's network security could use some improvement. They were introduced to Captain Do-hyun Kim, a broad-shouldered man with calm eyes and the practiced stillness of someone trained to move without being noticed. Captain Kim will be heading our practical applications team, General Kang explained. He has a background in special operations and advanced physics, a rare combination that makes him uniquely suited for this project. Do-hyun bowed slightly. Your discovery changes everything, doctors. I've assembled a team of soldiers and scientists who are already training to understand these probability folds. Over the next few weeks, Jiwoo and Taiho worked closely with Do-hyun's team, teaching them how to sense and manipulate the reality. Glitches. Some people picked it up quickly while others struggled to grasp the concept. It's like trying to see something out of the corner of your eye, explained Sunwoo, one of Do-hyun's team members who had shown particular aptitude. The moment you try to look directly at it, it disappears. Jiwoo nodded. That's because you're trying to perceive something that exists partially outside our normal 3 dimensions. Your brain wants to make sense of it, but can't quite manage. The breakthrough came when they discovered that certain mental exercises could help people attune themselves to the folds. It wasn't unlike learning meditation, but instead of focusing inward, they trained themselves to perceive the subtle wrinkles in reality around them. Within 2 months, Do-hyun had 12 operatives who could reliably create and traverse the folds without equipment. The military applications were obvious. Soldiers who could step through reality itself, appearing instantly behind enemy lines or inside secure facilities. Show me, General Kang demanded during a progress review. Do-hyun nodded to his team. In perfect synchronization, all 12 members raised their hands, created shimmering distortions in the air, and stepped through, vanishing completely. 10 seconds later, they reappeared from similar distortions behind the general, making him jump despite his military composure. Impressive, he admitted. Range? Currently about 5 kilometers, Do-hyun replied, but we're working on extending it. Dr. Park has a theory that the distance is limited only by our ability to visualize the destination clearly. Unbeknownst to the humans, their activities were causing increasing alarm among the alien observers. The Concordate's investigative vessel had arrived in Earth orbit, cloaked from human detection systems, and was monitoring the situation with growing horror. This is unprecedented, said Chief Investigator Venra, watching the humans casually stepping through probability folds. They're treating cosmic architecture like a playground. Do they have any idea of the damage they could cause? It gets worse, her science officer reported. We've detected probability fold activity at 27 different locations around their planet. The knowledge is spreading. Back on Earth, Jiwoo had developed a handheld device that could detect probability, folds created by others, essentially a map showing doorways through reality that anyone could use once opened. It's like they're leaving footprints in the fabric of space-time, she explained to Do-Hyun as they watched dots appearing on the device's screen. Once someone creates a fold, it weakens that point in reality, making it easier for others to use. This discovery led to an entirely new strategy. Instead of training everyone to create folds, a skill that some people simply couldn't master, they could train specialists to open pathways that could then be used by anyone with minimal instruction. Like building roads through reality, Taiho said excitedly. The applications expanded beyond military use. Emergency medical teams practiced using folds to reach accident victims instantly. Search and rescue operations tested how folds could help them reach people trapped in remote locations or disaster zones. One afternoon, as Jiwoo was demonstrating a new technique, she noticed something strange, a fold appearing that none of her team had created. It shimmered differently with an oddly geometric pattern unlike the organic ripples they typically produced. Everyone step back, Do-Hyun ordered, his hand moving instinctively to his sidearm. The fold expanded, and through it stepped a figure that was decidedly not human, tall, with silvery skin and too many joints in its limbs. "Oh," said Jiwoo, surprisingly, calm despite her racing heart. "I guess we weren't the first to discover this after all." The alien's voice seemed to bypass their ears, appearing directly in their minds. "Humans of Earth, by authority of the Galactic Concordat, you are ordered to cease all manipulation of probability folds immediately. You are interfering with fundamental structures of reality without understanding the consequences." Do-Hyun stepped forward, positioning himself between the alien and Jiwoo. "I think you'll find that's not how things work on our planet. We don't take orders from visitors, especially ones who've been watching us without introducing themselves." The alien's skin rippled in what might have been surprise or annoyance. "Your species was not supposed to discover probability manipulation for at least another 1,000 years. You are like children playing with the support beams of a house." "Then perhaps," said Jiwoo, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear, "you should explain exactly what we're dealing with, because we have no intention of stopping something that could revolutionize our world. The standoff that followed would change Earth's place in the galaxy forever." The alien delegation grew from 1 to 5 within hours. They identified themselves as representatives of the Galactic Concordat, an alliance of spacefaring civilizations that had existed for millennia. Their ship now hung visibly in orbit, having dropped its cloaking technology after first contact, a massive silver structure that glittered like a strange new star in Earth's night sky. World leaders gathered in emergency sessions while military forces went on high alert. At the research facility, Jiwoo, Taiho, and Do-Hyun found themselves at the center of the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. "Let me understand this correctly," said President Hae-Soo Lee, who had arrived by helicopter to personally oversee the discussions. "You've been monitoring Earth for centuries, and you're upset because we discovered something you didn't think we were ready for." The lead alien, who had given the name Kelnar, made a fluid gesture with its many jointed hands. "It is not a matter of being upset, Madam President. It is concern for the safety of this entire sector of space. Probability folds are not simple shortcuts through space-time as your scientists believe. They are load-bearing structures of reality itself." Displays appeared in mid-air, showing complex mathematical models that even Jiwoo struggled to comprehend. "Think of reality as a vast building," Kelnar continued. "What you call probability folds are like the support columns holding up that building. For brief periods, it is possible to move these columns slightly, creating what you perceive as shortcuts through space, but move them too much or too often." The display showed a simulated collapse, waves of destruction spreading outward from a central point. President Lee frowned. "If they're so dangerous, why do you use them yourselves? Our satellites detected your ship using similar technology to arrive here." A different alien, one with a blue-tinted complexion, spoke up. "We use them according to strict protocols developed over thousands of years. We know exactly how much strain the cosmic architecture can withstand. Humans are improvising. Do-Yun stepped forward. With all due respect, we've conducted hundreds of fold operations without incident. Our scientists have monitored for any signs of instability. Because the damage isn't immediately apparent, Kelnar said. But make no mistake, it accumulates. And there's another concern. Your methods of accessing the folds are unlike anything we've seen before. All eyes turned to Jiwoo, who stood her ground despite feeling suddenly self-conscious. What do you mean? Most species require extensive technology to detect and manipulate probability folds, explained Kelnar. Yet humans seem to perceive them almost naturally, with minimal training. This suggests something unusual about human consciousness that we find concerning. The diplomatic dance continued for days. The Concordat insisted that Earth cease all probability fold research immediately. They offered technology trades as compensation, medical advances, clean energy solutions, even limited spaceflight capabilities. But one thing became clear. They were scared. Behind closed doors, President Lee met with her advisors, including Jiwoo and Do-Hyun. They're offering us trinkets to give up the most significant discovery in human history, the president said. What they're not saying is as important as what they are. I think they're terrified of what we might become if we continue down this path. It's more than that, Jiwoo added. Did you notice how they keep watching our hands? How they flinch when we gesture? I think they can't do what we do. They need machines to access the folds, while some of us can feel them naturally. Do-Hyun nodded. An advantage they don't want us to realize we have. After a week of tense negotiations, Earth's united response was delivered. Humanity would continue its research with or without Concordat approval. The aliens didn't take the news well. Within hours, more ships arrived in Earth's orbit. Dozens. Then hundreds. They established what they called a protective quarantine, preventing any Earth vessels from leaving orbit and blocking all outgoing transmissions beyond the solar system. This is for your own protection as well as the galaxy's, Kelnar explained, though the message felt hollow with the implied threat of the Armada hanging overhead. But the Concordat had underestimated human resourcefulness, and Captain Do-Hyun, Kim in particular. They can block our ships and signals, Do-Hyun told his team as they gathered in the secure underground levels of the facility. But they can't block what they don't understand. His elite squad had spent the last month pushing the boundaries of probability fold manipulation. While the aliens used rigid mathematics-based approaches to creating folds, humans had developed an intuitive understanding that was proving far more flexible. They see folds as fixed points in space-time, Jiwoo explained, pointing to her latest research. But we've discovered they're more like streams. They can be redirected, combined, even hidden within other folds. The plan was audacious. Do-Hyun and a small team would use a cascading series of folds, a technique the Concordat apparently hadn't discovered, to bypass the blockade and infiltrate the alien flagship. Not to attack, President Lee clarified, when briefed on the mission, but to demonstrate that their quarantine is meaningless against our capabilities. Sometimes the best negotiating position is showing your opponent that their strategy has already failed. The night of the operation, Jiwoo watched nervously as Do-Hyun's team prepared. 5 soldiers, each wearing only standard combat gear with small recording devices. The folds will hold for approximately 3 minutes once you're aboard their ship, she instructed. After that, you'll need to create your own path back. Do-Hyun nodded, eyes focused and calm. If we're not back in 20 minutes, assume the mission failed. Just be careful, Jiwoo said, surprising herself with her concern for the stoic captain. Do-Hyun's rare smile flashed briefly. Always am. The team gathered in a circle, joined hands, and Do-Hyun began the sequence they'd practiced. Not just opening a single fold, but creating a series of nested passages, each one hiding within the signature of the last. To any observer, including the Concordat sensors, it would appear as though they'd simply opened a fold to another location on Earth. The air shimmered, twisted, and then folded in on itself in a way that made the eyes hurt to watch directly. Without hesitation, Do-hyun led his team through, vanishing from the facility and materializing directly on the bridge of the Concordat flagship, surrounded by stunned alien officers. "Hello," said Do-hyun calmly, as his team quickly positioned themselves around the bridge. "I believe this demonstrates why your blockade approach needs reconsideration. We'd like to reopen negotiations as equals this time." The look of absolute shock on the aliens' faces made it clear the balance of power had just shifted dramatically, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The footage from Do-hyun's mission spread across Earth like wildfire. People everywhere watched in awe as human soldiers appeared without warning on an alien spacecraft, moved confidently among beings from another world, and then vanished again, all without the advanced technology the aliens relied upon. What humans didn't see was the absolute chaos unfolding throughout the Concordat fleet. "How did they do that?" demanded High Commander Velthora, pounding a three-fingered hand against the control panel. "Our sensors detected nothing. No energy signature, no space-time distortion, nothing until they were already on the bridge." The science officers had no answers. The security team had no explanations. For the first time in the Concordat's 10,000-year history, they faced a species that could bypass their most advanced defenses using abilities they couldn't even detect. Back on Earth, Ji-woo was analyzing data from the mission when Taiho burst into her lab, tablet in hand. "You need to see this," he said, excitement making his voice crack. "We intercepted transmissions between the Concordat ships." The translated message was revealing. "Urgent. All vessels maintain distance protocols from human population centers. Do not allow humans within 50 meters of any crew member without proper neural shielding. Human probability manipulation appears to be consciousness-based rather than technology-based. Extreme caution advised." Ji-woo smiled. "They're afraid of us." "Not just afraid," Taiho replied. "They're panicking." That panic spread quickly beyond Earth's orbit. As reports reached the wider Concordat, 27 civilizations spanning 3 galactic arms, the reaction was swift and divisive. Some species demanded immediate action to contain the human threat. Others advocated for diplomatic solutions. A few even suggested that humanity might represent an evolutionary path they had never considered possible. On the Concordat's capital world, the High Council convened an emergency session. The broadcast reached Earth 3 days later. Intercepted by the new alien communications array the military had reverse-engineered from studying the Concordat's transmissions. "The humans represent an unprecedented situation," announced the Council. "Elder, an ancient being from one of the founding civilizations. They are manipulating cosmic architecture using only their minds. Our scientists believe this indicates a fundamental difference in human consciousness, one that may have severe implications for our understanding of the universe." Video began circulating among alien worlds. Carefully documented examples of humans using probability folds. Most disturbing to the Concordat was footage of children playing in a research facility daycare center, where the youngest had discovered they could hide toys by tucking them into tiny folds in reality. "They're teaching their offspring to manipulate space-time as if it were a game," exclaimed one council member, 12 appendages waving in apparent distress. 3 Concordat member species immediately withdrew from Earth space, their representatives declaring that humans were too dangerous to contact at this stage of development. Others demanded a more aggressive approach, suggestions of containment measures that sounded ominously like plans for humanity's extinction. President Lee called an emergency meeting with Ji-woo, Do-hyun, and the other project leaders. "We need to understand exactly what's happening," she said, her face lined with worry. "Why are some of these species so terrified of us? What can we do that they can't?" Ji-woo had been working on that question for weeks. "I think I know," she said, pulling up her research. "Every species in the Concordat approaches probability folds through mathematics and technology. They see reality as something rigid, governed by equations. They build machines to detect the folds, calculate precisely how to open them, and use fixed protocols. And humans don't?" asked the president. "We do things differently," Ji-woo explained. "We feel the folds. We sense them intuitively. It's like the difference between someone who reads sheet music to play a song, note by precise note, versus someone who plays by ear, improvising as they go. Do-Hyun nodded. During training, we found that the best fold navigators weren't necessarily those with the strongest scientific background, but those with the most creative thinking. Artists, musicians, people who could visualize abstract concepts. So we're playing jazz while they're performing classical, the president said thoughtfully. Exactly, agreed Ji-woo. And they've built their entire understanding of the universe around the idea that there's only one right way to interact with these cosmic structures. We're breaking rules they didn't even know could be broken. The situation grew more tense when unauthorized videos began appearing online, regular citizens experimenting with probability folds. Despite government attempts to keep the technique classified, the basic concept had leaked. People around the world were teaching themselves to create small folds, mostly useless tricks like reaching through space to grab TV remotes or scare friends. The Concordate's monitoring systems lit up with thousands of small probability distortions across the planet. They're everywhere, whispered Science Officer Rendell aboard the flagship. Every human settlement, every city, every village, they're tearing at the fabric of reality like it's a toy. On a small farm in rural Korea, 10-year-old Minji showed her friends the trick she'd figured out. With intense concentration, she created a tiny fold between her bedroom and the henhouse, reaching through to collect eggs without walking across the muddy yard. It's easy, she told her wide-eyed friends. You just have to imagine the place you want to reach like it's right next to you instead of far away. By sundown, all 5 children could create small folds. By the next morning, their entire school was practicing. The Concordate ships in orbit registered the spike in probability distortions and went into high alert. 3 more species withdrew their vessels, accelerating away from Earth as if fleeing a plague. They don't understand us at all, Ji-woo said, watching the alien ships departing on the tracking screens. They've spent millennia building rigid structures around something that's actually fluid and dynamic. And that makes us dangerous, Do-Hyun concluded. No, Ji-woo corrected him. It makes us necessary. Because if they're right about the cosmic architecture being load-bearing, if these probability folds really are holding reality together, then maybe the universe needs species that can repair and maintain them naturally. As if to punctuate, her words alert sounded throughout the facility. The largest Concordate vessel was changing position, moving into a lower orbit directly above them. They're sending a transmission, said a communications officer. Audio and visual directed specifically to this facility. The alien that appeared on screen wasn't one they'd seen before, older looking, with skin that had faded to a pale blue. I am Chief Scientist Kelmora of the Concordate, the alien announced. I request permission to speak directly with your Dr. Park. The Council has authorized me to learn from humans. It seems... The alien paused, as if the words were difficult. It seems we have much to learn. The meeting took place in a hastily constructed dome at the edge of the research facility. Transparent walls allowed both sides to bring security teams while maintaining a sense of openness. Ji-woo sat across from Chief Scientist Kelmora, with Do-Hyun standing protectively nearby. Thank you for agreeing to this exchange, Kelmora began, voice translator making the alien's complex tones understandable. I've studied thousands of species across the galaxy, but never encountered anything like humans. Ji-woo nodded, trying to hide her excitement at speaking with an alien scientist. We're still trying to understand your reaction to our discovery. The panic seems extreme. Kelmora's skin rippled, which they had learned was a sign of deep emotion. Imagine building your understanding of the universe on certain fundamental principles for 10,000 years, only to discover they might be completely wrong. That is what humanity represents to us. Over the next several hours, they shared research. Ji-woo explained her breakthrough discovery, while Kelmora revealed the Concordate's understanding of what they called dimensional lattice structures. The difference in our approaches is remarkable, Kelmora said, studying Ji-woo's equations. We see probability folds as fixed points that can be temporarily manipulated with precise calculations. You see them as malleable tissues that respond to consciousness itself. I've been working on a theory about that, Ji-woo said, excitement overtaking her caution. She pulled up brain scans on a nearby screen. Look at these neural patterns when humans interact with probability folds. There's activity in regions that, according to your species map, shouldn't be involved in spatial perception at all. Kelmora leaned forward. This is impossible. These regions appear to be processing information from outside standard spacetime dimensions. Exactly, Jiwoo said triumphantly. I believe human consciousness exists partially outside conventional reality. Not completely, we're still physical beings, but our awareness extends beyond the boundaries most species perceive. But how? Why would evolution produce such a trait? Jiwoo had wondered the same thing until she examined Earth's quantum background radiation patterns. Our planet has an unusually high level of quantum flux, random fluctuations in fundamental particles. Life that evolved here had to develop ways to maintain stability despite this chaos. Other animals developed physical adaptations, but humans developed perceptual ones. As the scientific exchange deepened, something unexpected happened. Kelmora began to understand not just the theory, but the feeling of probability manipulation. Under Jiwoo's guidance, the alien scientist managed a small fold, the first member of the Concordat to do so without technology. I felt it, Kelmora whispered, visibly shaken, like a current beneath reality. Word of this breakthrough spread quickly through the Concordat fleet. Within days, more scientists requested permission to learn from the humans. The initial fear was giving way to fascination, at least among some species. Meanwhile, Do-hyun and his team were making discoveries of their own. Working with the more open-minded Concordat military liaisons, they began mapping the cosmic architecture that supported reality. It's like we've been living in a house without knowing about the foundation, Do-hyun explained during a briefing. The probability folds aren't just shortcuts, they're maintenance tunnels for reality itself. Most surprising was their discovery that these structures showed signs of decay. According to Concordat records, critical load-bearing points in the dimensional lattice had been weakening for millennia, with no explanation why. They've been trying to reinforce these points with technology, Do-hyun said, but it's like patching a dam with tape. The pressure keeps building. Jiwoo's theory, developed alongside Kelmora, suggested something revolutionary. The universe itself might have evolved human consciousness specifically to maintain these structures. Reality needs caretakers who can perceive and repair its foundations. Intuitively, she explained to President Lee and assembled world leaders. The Concordat has been preserving knowledge of these structures, but they've been limited by their technical approach. They can see the blueprint but can't feel the building. 3 months after first contact, a formal agreement was signed between Earth and the Galactic Concordat. Humans would share their intuitive understanding of probability manipulation, while the Concordat would share their vast knowledge of the cosmos. The first joint mission launched 6 weeks later. The Concordat provided the ship, a sleek vessel designed specifically for dimensional exploration, while humans served as the navigators. Captain Do-hyun Kim led the human team, with Jiwoo joining as chief scientist. Together with Kelmora and experts from 7 Concordat species, they embarked on an expedition to study and repair critical points in the cosmic architecture. Ready for the jump? Do-hyun asked as they approached the first site, a nexus of probability folds near Alpha Centauri. Jiwoo nodded, placing her hands on the specially designed interface that amplified human perception of the folds. Around her, alien scientists watched with a mixture of trepidation and wonder. Creating primary fold now, she said, closing her eyes and sensing the currents of reality around them. Unlike the rigid mathematical approach the Concordat had always used, Jiwoo let her consciousness flow with the natural patterns of space-time. The ship glided smoothly through dimensions that had no name, emerging precisely at the nexus point. Before them hung what looked like a vast, shimmering web, threads of probability connecting countless realities. It's beautiful, whispered Kelmora, seeing the cosmic structure through human-designed sensors for the first time. We never perceived it this way before. Where the Concordat's instruments showed only mathematical abstractions, the human interface revealed an almost living system, pulsing with energy, but clearly damaged in places where the threads had thinned or frayed. I think I understand now, Jiwoo said quietly. Reality isn't rigid or fixed, it's more like an ecosystem. It evolves, adapts, and sometimes it creates exactly what it needs to survive. As the human team began the delicate work of strengthening the weakened folds, using their minds to gently reshape reality itself, the alien scientists documented everything, developing an entirely new branch of physics based on human perception. Back on Earth, education programs were already being established to train the next generation of cosmic architects, as they were now called. Children who showed particular aptitude for probability manipulation were given special guidance, not to weaponize their abilities, but to develop them responsibly. On her 10th birthday, Minji from the rural farm was invited to join the first Children's Academy for dimensional studies. The little girl who had once used probability folds to collect eggs would someday help maintain the very fabric of reality. It's strange to think about, Do-yeon said to Jiwoo as they floated in space, watching their team work on the shimmering threads of the universe. All those years the Concorde had spent watching Earth, worried we might discover some dangerous technology. And all along, the dangerous technology was us, Jiwoo finished with a smile. Not our tools or weapons, but our minds, the way we see reality differently. Do you think that's why they were so afraid at first? Jiwoo nodded. It's always frightening when your fundamental understanding of the world is challenged. But sometimes that's exactly what's needed for growth. As their ship prepared to return to Earth, carrying the first successful joint mission data, the stars seemed somehow brighter than before, as if reality itself was responding to their care, strengthening with each repaired fold. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting a very long time for humans to notice the glitches in its code.